All right, so I think I'm live. This is my first time, so I'm not sure what to expect. So I guess I'm gonna wait till people start joining, and if you can hear me and see me okay, go ahead and I don't know, give me a like or a comment or something. Say yes if you can hear me. I don't know if there's anyone out there. So let's see here. Okay. I'm not sure if you guys can see me at all. Getting these error messages, so bear with me here for a second. Okay. All right, so I'm not sure if you can hear me or see me at all. If you can hear me, go ahead and say yes on the comments so that I can see if if you guys can hear me or see me okay. Let's see here. I'm getting error messages saying that the video's not showing. So can anyone see me or hear me? I see like there's about 3 people right now on. So I don't know if you guys can hear me or see me. Go ahead and leave me post a comment or something so I know that you guys can see me or hear me. If not, I'll go ahead and get started here in a little bit. Let's see. Okay, it's saying that my video signal is not going through. All right, I see 1 thumbs up. So is that both audio and video? You can see me and hear me? Go ahead and say yes, audio, yes, video. Sue. Okay, so I believe that you guys are able to see me. So okay, I'm starting to see hearts, so that's good to know. Like I said, this is my first time ever doing a live here on Facebook. So I'm not sure what to expect or whatnot, but I'm going to be basically sharing a little bit of my story and I guess talking a little bit about also what has gone over the last year or so since I've been a little bit inactive. So I'm going to just wait about a couple more minutes just to make sure that people can join us and stuff. So I see Chanel. You have Graves and Hashimoto. So, well, first of all, welcome. And, thank you guys for joining me, first of all. So I want to make sure that I say that. I'm Maria. I see you. Welcome, guys. I guess I'll leave some time towards the end to answer some questions. Mostly because I want to go back to the beginning of my story and, share a little bit more about that. How I got started with, this whole journey, why I got started. And also, like I said, I'm going to share a little bit about what happened, with me over the last year and kind of where I'm going, moving forward for the rest of the year. So I see there are more people starting to join now. So okay, so this is pretty cool. This is interesting. Like I said, this is my first time ever doing a live here on Facebook. So I'm kind of excited and nervous at the same time. If you guys don't know, I'm for the most part fairly introverted. So to put myself out here, I'm really stepping outside of my comfort zone. So anyway, so I appreciate all the support that I've gotten over the last few years, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. So for everyone that joins us from here on out, I guess you'll just have to watch the replay to kind of hear the full story. But for those of you who don't know my full story, where I started, I actually started as a home brewer. I was teaching how to brew beer, and I actually have I printed out a copy of my book that I used to sell, teaching home brewing. And so my story really started around 2012, and being that I was a home brewer, I was brewing a lot of beer at home. I was drinking a lot, which obviously led to some of my health issues. One of them being obviously liver. My liver was not happy with me, but also I developed a lot of gut issues. And so things just started to build up where I started experiencing a lot of symptoms that I know many people here are experiencing. Things from I started gaining weight, and when I said gaining weight, I meant like I started gaining weight out of control. Where 1 month and I was like 25 pounds heavier. I bought a whole new wardrobe, and then like a month later, that wardrobe wasn't even fitting me. It was the first time that my belly was starting to hang over my belt. And I was a home brewer, so it was kind of like almost expected, or like I guess nothing that people will be shocked to hear. But the fact that my belly was hanging over my belt was not really the concern. The concern was more that I was really fatigued. I had horrible brain fog. My hair started falling off, and I think that was really the main trigger for me, because I just wasn't feeling right. And I just remember, one day waking up and being tired, and I stepped in the shower, and I'm just lathering up my hair, and I just remember, my eyes are closed, but I feel this texture in my hand. So I kind of look down, and I see a lot of hair on my hands, and I'm looking around, and there's hair all over the bathtub, the shower curtains, like everything, like it's covered in hair. And that's when I'm like, wow, like this is not normal hair loss. And that was one of those moments that triggered my desire, I guess, to learn what was going on with me. And I started to learn about health. And so that was around the time that I started like really reading and researching health, and I started to learn and understand things that the only reason why I feel like I have a very unique understanding on a lot of these topics is because of what I know from brewing beer. Like, for example, one of the things that I knew I was going through was digestive issues. And when it comes to brewing beer, digestion is basically what I was dealing with when it comes to like mashing grains to convert starches into sugars. Fermentation is really a continuation of the digestive process, and it was stuff that I was teaching, but I never really connected the two. I never really thought of brewing beer as health. But when I started to learn about the digestive system and understood that what we're dealing with is yeast, bacteria, and basically our gut flora, all of a sudden, like I had this epiphany that our bodies are just like a fermentation vessel. And so all of a sudden, all the knowledge that I accumulated from brewing beer was really what has gotten me through, and what has really helped me make my transformation is really what I have been teaching. And since I started making my videos in 2012, when I really started, it was really because I just felt a moral obligation to share this message, to say like, hey, you know what, here's what I found, here's the correlation. And it wasn't something that it just came to me and started to share. It was more like I had my epiphany, I took action, and I started doing all these things. And once I saw that I got results, and I saw that, hey, this isn't just a theory, but it's actually things that people can verify and research on their own. That's when that channel started taking off. So I'm going to be sharing, I guess, a little bit about, a little bit more about that. Maybe I'll answer some questions on that. But anyway, so fast forward, throughout the years since 2012, when I started sharing, posting videos on YouTube and created my email newsletter, I basically came across a lot of I came across a lot of information where I realized that there was a point where what I thought was normal and basically what other people will see as doing something as normal, there was a point where I went from that being that normal person to all of a sudden I have all this knowledge and I started doing advanced things, and I realized that there's a little point here where I had to jump over myself, and it was a hurdle. And for me, it was fasting. Fasting was the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome, as far as I had fears to do it. And I noticed that a lot of people that follow me, they get stuck on things that I struggled with as well. But these are the things that I know that the people that have followed me and actually have taken action on these things, those are the people that I have experienced the results. And so I've gotten to the point where, if you've watched any of my my YouTube videos, if you've been on my email newsletter, I've practically gotten to a point where I've shared just about everything that I know that has helped me. Like, all the information is out there. And so what has brought me to this point, the reason why I'm back and I'm looking forward to sharing a lot more of this information is really because last year what happened was, I had a lot of personal, I guess, things that went on. So, for those of you who know or may not know, I was engaged and that fell through. So last year I basically was going through that whole, emotional roller coaster, and I fell into this, just massive depression and, anxiety. Like, it all just kind of like came back, and all of a sudden I found myself not really keeping up with a lot of the things that I teach when it comes to like health and stuff like that. And so almost kind of like, stop doing some of these things myself. And it wasn't really like I was like, every day that I was going through, I wasn't necessarily feeling depressed, but it was after a couple of months that I look back and I'm like, wow, like, I really just isolated myself from just about everything and everyone. I mean, like, I barely even talked to my own family, but I needed that time and that space. And during that time and that space, I realized that what has allowed me to, I guess, help and reach out more people is basically showing up as myself, as, my genuine self, where I'm just willing to open myself up and share with you all of my struggles. And I want to share that with you because, a lot of people see my videos, they see my, they read my success story, they see all the things that I've done in the past. But I'm not always that way. I'm not always performing, at that level. And so this last year, as I was reflecting over, the things that I've shared and how I've gone about, trying to help other people, I guess, create their own success story, I realized that more information wasn't necessarily what I needed to put out, because a lot of it is already out there. But really was more what I would call successful habits, habits that I've created for myself. And it's so interesting because when I first started my YouTube channel and even this page, I had the idea of a success story, but I didn't ever think that I was going to be teaching, I guess, success habits. And so that's kind of where I'm looking to move forward, where I'm going to be taking the same information that I've shared multiple times, but now I'm looking at, okay, like, there's a lot of people, there's over 4,000, I guess, followers here on this fan page. And out of 4,000 followers, I only have a handful of people who've actually gone out and taken action and done something to where they've gotten results. And, one of my goals for this year is I want to increase that number. And I realized that in order for me to do that, I need to get more involved, personally involved. And so, because I'm coming out of this, era of my life, I guess, where I'm looking to get back on my feet, looking to get back into, taking care of my health a lot more, and basically going through all of that, I'm essentially starting from scratch. And so I'm taking this as an opportunity to basically invite you to be part of this journey, because I'm going to be starting what I did from the very beginning, like the entire cycle. I'm basically going to start all over again. And the reason why I think this is important is because a lot of people that, like I said, like, they see my videos and see all the things that I do, it almost becomes overwhelming because they see that I'm, fasting, I'm doing probiotics, I'm doing all these things, and they're like, I don't even know where to start. And so even myself right now, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, like, I was doing a lot of things, but I didn't start out that way. I started out with, one thing at a time. Like, I started doing my green juices, then I started doing intermittent fasting, then I started taking care of my first meal, then I started doing more probiotics, and I just started adding one thing at a time, and I would create these habits. And that's what made it, easy for me to basically transition from my old lifestyle into a new lifestyle. So that's basically what I guess what you guys can look forward to. for the next coming years. And so I still see we have basically the same amount of people. So that's basically my story, in a nutshell. And I guess one thing that I want to share, just so you guys can kind of see how I think and why a lot of this stuff just makes sense. For my own book, one of the things that I was learning about, and kind of like one of those epiphany moments, I was reading about how when you are hypothyroid, one of the things that happens is that your body temperature drops. And what I understood from that is, stuff that, I'll read from my own book, which is so weird because this is years ago that I wrote this. But I basically wrote, on in a chapter where I'm talking about fermentation temperature. And I basically talk about how, let's see, I say, notice that all fermentation profiles are either constant or rising, and there's none decreasing. So I'm talking about fermentation temperature. And the problem with bringing temperature down while the yeast are eating sugar is that yeast may go to sleep and stop working. So I know that, in brewing beer, when fermentation temperature drops, yeast stop fermenting beer. And so what that told me as far as the body is, when you're digesting food, you have all your gut flora is active, and it's active because your body temperature is, supposed to be 98.3 or 0.6 degrees. And whenever that temperature drops, there's certain bacteria that basically start to go dormant. And also I understand that the lower that temperature drops, there's other bad bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, that will awaken. And it's basically the type of bacteria that you don't want to have active in your body. This is all the bad bacteria. This is what started to create, what creates a lot of those gut health issues, digestive issues. And so it's just, little things like that for me, they just make sense because I did this for years, right? Brewing beer and understanding fermentation, which is basically the same way that the body operates. And so from there, I started to understand that because I had digestive issues, that my body wasn't digesting, key nutrients like protein. Protein wasn't being broken down into amino acids, and that's one of the things that the liver uses to convert the thyroid hormone T4 into T3. And so that's what causes like cortisol spikes. And it's like all of a sudden, like I'm starting to put all these pieces together, and I start to understand that there's people that are going through these experiences, and everyone, there's like groups of people. Some people have had their thyroids removed. Some people may be experiencing liver issues, and that's where the main problem may come from. There's also the vast majority of people with thyroid issues that I've, from what I've seen and talked to people, I've seen that it's been from gut issues, digestive issues, and I gotta always, I guess, remember to say that I'm not a doctor. I'm just basically sharing my story and my knowledge, and my knowledge comes from brewing beer, which is so interesting and funny at the same time to me. But anyway, so. Hello, Kelly and Maria, Torre, hypothyroidism for 28 years. Yeah, so I've been, I guess I started about 7 years ago. And also another important thing that I like to, share with people, the reason why I share my story the way that I did is because a lot of people think that there's going to be one thing that you do and all of a sudden everything's going to be solved. And it doesn't exactly work that way. For example, what I believe was one of my biggest shifts, or what transitioned me into this new lifestyle, was when I did my juice fast. And a lot of people ask me about my juice fast, and there's a couple of things about it. Number one, I was terrified to do a juice fast. I literally, when I started reading about it, when I started understanding, like I said, the main reason why I went for it was because I understood that I needed to clean my body, I needed to clean my gut. It's just like in brewing beer, I basically know that if I have bad bacteria in my homebrew equipment, my beer is going to be spoiled from that bad bacteria. And I realized that it's the same in the body. If you have bad bacteria in your gut, bad yeast in your gut, then whatever you eat is going to be basically feeding all that bad bacteria. And so all that food is basically going to spoil inside of your body. And so I said, okay, so basically I need to clean, basically start out with, a clean gut. and build up from there. And so that's why I realized that a fast was necessary. And so I had all this knowledge that was pointing, pointing towards fasting as like the thing that I knew that I needed to do. But even though I knew all of that, I was still afraid to do it because I've never skipped a meal in my life, at least not on purpose. I've never skipped a meal and, ever. I was, number one, afraid that I was going to be lightheaded. I was going to faint, pass out. Literally, I thought that I was going to die if I didn't eat the entire day. And but I kept reading and looking up people who've done fasting and kind of like reading up about their stories, their experiences. And I realized that I was basically overthinking it, and I just needed to basically go for it. So I set out, I set a goal to do 3 days, and that's how I started. But really, when I set that goal, in the back of my mind, what I was thinking was like, if I can do 1 day, like I really need to make it through the first day, because I just didn't even think that I was going to be able to pull that off, especially because I used to wake up and I'd be hangry. First thing I needed to do was eat first thing in the morning. And so it was really a challenge. But once I made that decision that I was going to go for it, all I could see, like and this is important because I think that this is one of the biggest challenges that I see people have to overcome when it comes to like cleaning your body. And again, what I saw was I realized that if I was able to get through this was my one shot at getting my energy back. And that's really what got me through, was that dream that, hey, I want to have my life back. I want my energy back. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try it and basically see how I feel. So I went through my first day, and I have videos where I talk a lot about this, but basically the first day, it's like I said, it's mostly like your mind is just going to basically say, oh my God, you're not eating, you're hungry, and you're just like you're trying to talk yourself out of it, trying to like take a bite out of anything that you see. So really that's the biggest challenge on day one. Yes, like you'd be hungry, but really as you start going through, you kind of start to realize, hey, you know what, I'm still alive. Like I don't really feel that much different. But really the challenge is, you go through day one. Day two, I woke up and I didn't feel any hunger. Like I was not hungrier than the day before. So I realized, okay, like I did 1 day, this day shouldn't be as bad because I don't feel like I don't feel hungry or anything. Like if anything, like I don't feel as hungry. Like it actually diminished just a little bit. But I guess the struggle for the first 3 days, especially when you're fasting, is that your body starts to break down a lot of fat, and fat stores a lot of, that's where a lot of toxins are stored in the body. So you start to experience, all these toxins that are already inside of your body, but now they are kind of free, and your body needs to get rid of those, and you experience, turbulence. This is where you may feel like actually like worse in the beginning, and it's only because a lot of these toxins that are being released into the body are now, your body needs to like fight those and flush them out. So that's why, like when I did all my fasting, I did a lot of liquids, a lot of water, to make sure that my body was getting rid, of all of that. But anyways, so I went through those first 3 days. Day 4, I woke up and I realized that I'd slept better than I had slept in, a while. And I don't remember if it was day 4 or day 5, but I woke up one of those days, and all of a sudden, it was like my body hit this reset button, and I felt energy like I hadn't felt in years. Like I literally felt like I was 6 or 8 years old, and I had all this energy that I needed to expend. It was like 5 a.m. I woke up without an alarm clock, and I literally was like a little kid trying to jump and do something, run. I literally ended up actually dropping to the floor and doing push-ups. And I just remember, wow, like I haven't felt this much energy in a while. And that was what actually triggered the thought of like, hey, you know what, I'm feeling better. And even though I had set a goal for 3 days, because I was feeling better, I said, you know what, I don't have a reason to stop, so I'm just going to keep going. And so those initial 3 days turned into a week. And at the end of the week, like I said, I was feeling better. So I kept going to do 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into a month. And then after a month, I kept going, but I started adding smoothies here and there. But it was for the most part a liquid fast. And the reason for it being liquid was because I started to also understand that one of the main things that we need to do a better job at is hydrating ourselves. And again, when it comes to hydrating, I talk about water in my brewing books, and I read books on like water for brewing beer. So I just have all this knowledge because of brewing beer that I can now apply to my body. And understanding, for example, with energy, I understand that every cell of our body is like a little battery, and what makes your body able to use up the energy that it produces is minerals, right? And something that I know from brewing beer, without minerals, I couldn't brew beer. And without minerals, my body cannot use its own energy, because minerals are the conductive material. So the analogy that I always use is, every cell of your body is like a battery, and all it does is it stores energy. But when you connect, a conductive material like copper, right? Copper is a mineral. And when you connect a copper wire touching positive to negative, then anything that's touching that copper wire gets powered up. Well, the body works the same way. All these ionic minerals that you find in water, that's what allows your body to conduct electricity, and it's what allows you to use up the energy. So all these little concepts, like I said, I understood them, and that's when I started on my journey where I just became obsessed about learning about the body and health, especially because I had all this weird understanding from brewing beer, and it's part of what I want to share with you. And so again, when it comes to like hydrating and stuff like that, it gets to a point where it gets a little advanced. And in order for me to like teach that, like I need to help people, I guess, start out slowly, because like there are periods where I did heavy detoxing, heavy cleanses that, like I said, if you can't even get through a fasting, it's, trust me, like some of the cleanses that I did are pretty strong. But like I said, I only did this because I knew what was going to happen to my body, and I knew how I was going to feel. And that's why during those first 90 days that I started, I lost about 48 pounds, and it was done in a very healthy way, where I went from, when I started, I was 28 years old. And a lot of people that would see me or would try to like guess my age at the time, I remember like when I was 28, the oldest I was told that I was basically 35 years old, and I was 28 at the time. Less than a year later, after I did all these detoxing and basically lost all this weight, all of a sudden, not only did I look younger, I felt younger. People started thinking that I was like 22 to 24 years old. And again, a lot of it is because a lot of the things that create aging are basically toxins that are created in the gut. So there's a lot of benefits to doing this. And like I said, I want to do it for myself. And part of the things that I'm going to be talking about is not just the health side of it, but also I want to help people with the mindset that you really need in order to be able to pull something like this off. Like I said, one of the things that I believe keeps people from moving into this lifestyle is surroundings. For example, I still go to I go visit family or whatever, and it's, to them, my diets and the things that I do, it's weird, right? Like I grew up, my family's from Mexico, from Sonora. If you've never been there, the closest I can think of it to describe like the staples in their diet is kind of like Wisconsin, where the staples are beer, meat, and cheese. And that's kind of how I grew up. So when I go there, I remember the first time that I went back to visit family, and I'm juicing and I'm not eating meat or anything like that. I'm just, transitioning from juicing into like kind of like a raw vegan diet. That's kind of how it started. I remember my family's like looking at me like, wait, you're not going to eat tacos? Like, yeah, I grew up with that, right? And so to them, like, it was weird, and I had to like fight that urge to do the things that I was used to doing. And so again, surroundings was something that I needed to be aware of. It was something that I needed to, realize that, hey, if I'm going to do this, I need to, number one, make a decision that, I'm doing this for myself, because I can see a lot of my, a lot of friends, a lot of my own family members who are struggling with their health. They see what I'm doing, but they haven't really made the decision to go, fully on board with this. And that's when I realized that, hey, this is a journey really for myself first and foremost. And so you're going to have to go through the same thing where you're going to have to like look around you and say, hey, you know what? All the people around me, they don't have the health that I want to experience. And this is kind of like what allowed me to start looking for the right mentorship, the right people that I wanted to learn from. Because as I started to learn about this and share a lot of my knowledge with people, especially when I started talking to doctors, I realized that I remember a conversation I was having with one of my friends who was a doctor, and this was we were out to dinner, and he had some of his friends, doctor friends, that happened to be endocrinologists, and I'm talking to them, about all these things I was learning about how your gut flora works, digestive system, and how that was creating, all my hormone imbalances. And I just remember that I got to a point that I shared knowledge that they hadn't even heard about. And it was a light bulb moment, because I was looking at them and I'm like, you know what? They don't portray like that health, like that I would expect a doctor to have. And not all doctors are like that. So, there's good doctors who are obviously, a little bit more aware in that they actually practice what they preach. But I started to realize that, hey, there's a lot of, people that just don't understand this, and, and it doesn't matter what, where they come from, or what they do for a living. But I needed to figure out, okay, like if I'm going to, have this lifestyle for myself, I need to surround myself with people who are conscious about their health, about their eating habits. And this is kind of what I enjoyed about, putting together this community, was that I started to learn or come across, other people who are also going through the journey, who also understood that, hey, as much as I love food, I can't eat whatever I want whenever I want. Like if I eat pizza today, hey, I'll be okay. But if I start eating pizza every day, it's going to come to a point where my health is going to, start showing that, start basically declining. Well, I guess part of what has created my success story is the opposite, where every day I just had to make that choice from the moment I woke up to say, okay, how am I going to start my day? Right? So I would start my day with a green juice. I would do intermittent fasting. I would take my probiotics. And then my first meal of the day was important to me, because that's when I'm breaking my fast. And I started testing out different diets. Like I said, I did raw vegan for a while, and that was really good for detoxing, but I wasn't able to get my hormones, in balance with that. I found it to be hard. So I moved from that into kind of like a autoimmune paleo diet. And that's been one of the best transitional diets that I've found, also for a lot of people that have followed me, to go into a paleo type of diet. And then the other diet that I like to experiment with a lot is a ketogenic diet. And the primary reason for that is because a lot of your hormones are created from fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. And so you need a lot of the healthy fats. And so when you go into a ketogenic diet, it's one of the things that I would teach in my programs, where if I'm eating ketogenic and I'm eating foods that have a lot of vitamins A, D, E, and K, then my body is basically getting the raw materials that it needs to produce hormones, right? So there's all these, there's just so much information, I guess, that I've shared a lot of this before, so I'm kind of just repeating myself. But again, I get to a point where, like, okay, I've shared all this information multiple times. Why aren't more people, going through this and experiencing it? And what I kind of realized, one of the best things that I did about a year ago, before I went on my little hiatus and was dealing with my own personal issues, I did a energy and fat loss study group, where I basically took a group of people that basically raised their hands and said, hey, you know what, I want to try this whole fasting thing. And so I basically put together a program, for them, where I said, okay, let's do this together, because I feel like when you're doing this as a group, you start to meet other people who are going through the same struggles, who have the same fears, who may have the same questions, concerns, and then we all come together and we all basically start out doing the green juices, and people start experiencing some of the same things and realize, hey, okay, that it's normal for me to do that, because there's all these other people going through this. And then at the end of, I remember like this was about a month, where 1 week we did a lot of fasting. The next week we focused a lot on diet, what was like the first meals that we were eating. And then I transitioned into probiotics and basically stuff like that. And I just remember like that group was probably one of the best things that I did, because pretty much everyone that participated in that group saw results. And it's moving forward, it's really this style that I guess I want to use, just because I find that, me putting together more videos and sharing a lot of the same knowledge, I guess, that I've been sharing for years, isn't really bringing or creating as many success stories. So that's basically where I want to go. So here, I haven't really even been paying attention to the comments here. So let me go through and see here. Kelly, Hashimoto's for 20 years. Hello, Kelly. Cora, hypothyroidism for about 12 years. Maria, a lot of food makes me sick. I was the same way, because I had a lot of digestive issues. I would even I was trying to just eat salads, thinking like, okay, a salad's going to be healthy, but even eating a salad would make my gut bubble and stuff. So I mean, I feel you in that. I had the same issues. Kelly, gut issues. Chanel saying hi to Paul and Eric. Here you go, Mom. Watch this. Thank you for sharing. Can you have a chocolate during this fast? It depends. So when I did my juice fasting, I just did a lot of, I went straight a full fast, where all I was doing was liquids. When I did my energy and fat loss study group, what I did was intermittent fasting. So we're really only fasting 6 hours, from 6 a.m. to noon. And so then you would be basically eating we'd be eating our first meals, which a lot of people were doing mostly either paleo, kind of like an autoimmune paleo, which I believe that's kind of like one of the preferred ones. And then ketogenic was the other one. That was the one that I recommended, but I know it's a lot harder. Even for me to think about going ketogenic, I never thought I would ever be able to not eat carbs. I mean, I was addicted to sugar, and as many of you probably are, and I kind of made I have a video where I talk a lot about this, how part of having gut issues, gut health issues, you have an imbalance of bad bacteria, bad yeast. One of the things that tends to happen with a lot of people who have thyroid issues is they tend to have yeast candida overgrowth. And yeast, like I said, from brewing beer, I know that it's funny. Here's how I started teaching brewing, where I say basically, on the introduction chapter of my book, I say yeast eats sugar and turn it into alcohol. So I know from brewing beer that yeast eats sugar. And so the more sugar you eat, the more that yeast begins to grow in your gut. And there's good yeast and there's bad yeast. Bad yeast will be yeast like yeast candida. So yeast candida is basically, the more that grows in your gut, one of the things that I don't know if I've made a full video on this, but basically, when you're born, you're basically a little ball, it's kind of like a seed growing into a tree. You're the same way, where you split, and this is your nervous system, where this is your gut, and this is your, basically your nervous system going all the way to your brain. And there's a gut-brain connection that happens where all your gut flora, that's where a lot of your, feel-good hormones like serotonin and, things like that are created. A lot of your cravings and taste buds are created from the type of bacteria that live in your gut. So if you're craving a lot of sugar, it's usually because you have yeast overgrowth, because it's not really you that's craving the sugar, it's the yeast living in your gut. And they're basically sending signals to your, your taste buds, your tongue is like, hey, I need sugar, right? So there's that craving being developed. And again, that's something that you see, when you have those gut issues, and it's, like I said, it usually points to yeast candida. So anyways, going back to chocolate, chocolate is actually one of the things that I use, but this, I guess, goes more into understanding food better. And there's a program that I actually put together last year that I never really released, because it was, this was something that happened right after my engagement was called off, and I basically just disappeared and was taking time off to deal with all those issues, I guess. But there's different types of chocolates. If you get the right type of chocolate, and I'm talking about the heirloom versions, the Arriba Nacional is a brand I know that's basically that, comes from Central America. It's what the Mayans used to trade. This is the real chocolate. It's dark cacao. It's not sweet. It's quite bitter. But if you get that type of chocolate, one of the things about that chocolate is that that's basically food for your mind, for your brain. Like, it's literally what you're supposed to be eating. It's actually one of the foods that I use for brain fog. One of the foods that I use to basically increase my, awareness, my focus, my, consciousness. It's used for, that's basically what people used to use it for. It's great when you're fasting. It's easier to go into, depending, you may call it a prayer mode or meditation. It's the same state of mind, same state of being. That's one of the foods that I use. So chocolate, yes, I actually use chocolate a lot in my diets. Not so much when I'm doing a full fast, because I'm really trying to avoid any kind of solid food. But chocolate would be a great thing to use if you're following an intermittent fasting diet, or as you're coming out of your fast. It's one of those foods that you can start eating, because your body's basically primed and ready to uptake a lot of these great foods. So I'll probably be sharing more on that later. But anyway, so Maria Alatorre, I'm from Sonora. Hey, how are you? So Maria can vouch for me. They have the best carne asada tacos down there. Let's see. Fabian just jumped in the room. Hey, how's it going? I'm from Dallas. I was diagnosed years ago with hyperthyroidism. Grapes was put. I have my aunt has hyper. There's some similarities, but really they're kind of like almost the opposite. Hypo, it's kind of like low body temperature. Hyper is high body temperature. With hypo, you have a hard time digesting. What would you call it? Like your digestive system's just slow, whereas with hyper, it's so fast. So I remember my aunt, she lost a lot of weight really fast. She had like her eyes were kind of like bulging and popping out. I mean, I believe hyper is way more dangerous. It's not really something that I specialize on or know much about, other than a lot of it's also gut issues. But anyways, welcome. So I don't know how much of this information will apply to you all, though I know that a lot of the things that I teach are really universal, because our bodies work for the most part the same. So let's see here. First, I'm watching new to your page. Always exhausted, never sleep. I feel like I can sleep anywhere. So took meds, stopped. Okay, didn't listen about depression, but kept saying meds working. It was not taking them. Yeah, so with like I said, with gut issues, depression is something that's common, because a lot of the feel-good hormones are created in your gut. So when you have these digestive issues, you basically don't have the bacteria that produce not only like thyroid hormones and growth hormones and other hormones that your body needs, but also your feel-good hormones that will take you out of that depressive state. And again, I just experienced this this last year. I was going through a lot of that, and luckily for me, I realized that, hey, I need to get back into my healthy habits, because I know that that's part of what's going to help me overcome a lot of these issues for myself. So that's that. Let's see, Asunta Sue. Hello, Sue. I've been hypo since 2007 when my thyroid removed from cancer. My biggest concern is gut issues, bloating, feeling sluggish. Help. Good to know dark cacao chocolate is good for brain fog. Yeah, so there's, cacao is only one of the things that I use. I drink a lot of teas, like blue lotus flowers. It's a great one. A lot of, I know Mucuna pruriens, a lot of Ayurvedic herbs, but really, I think for brain fog, number one, cleaning, basically detoxing my gut, cleaning my gut. I believe that's probably one of the biggest ones. And then second to that, that's, I believe, almost just as important, is liver. The cleaner your liver, the clearer your thinking is. And liver cleansing is really one of those advanced ones, because your liver is, God, like it's one of the main filters that the body uses, where a lot of toxins are trapped in. And so some of the detoxes that I've done for for my liver, one of the main herb, I guess, that I used for it was Bacopa monnieri. It's one of the most bitter herbs. And that's the thing about liver detoxing, is like the best things for liver are bitter. So it's like the more bitter something is, it's like the better it's for your liver. And that's, I don't like that, but hey, that's basically what I had to go through. And that's, like I said, that's a heavy detox that I wouldn't necessarily start there. But I just know that that's one of the things that really helped me, clear my brain fog, was focusing on cleaning my liver. And I guess, I like to share, things that I did. I'm going to be walking through a lot of the same things that I did. But as I'm doing that, my take with a lot of these things is going to be more on, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm sharing this not as a doctor, not as an expert. I don't really consider myself an expert. I really consider myself a student more than anything. Really just studying my body. I'm really learning what my body does. And the main reason for it was because I realized most, again, no offense to any doctors that may be watching this, but I just realized that with the conversations that I had with doctors, they were just not listening to me. They were just not understanding what I was going through. And I just basically realized that, hey, if I follow their advice, they're going to try to put me on medication. And my idea of a good doctor was not someone that wanted to put me on it, but someone that wanted to take me off of them. And I know that's not going to be the case for everyone, because there's, like I said, there's like some people here, I know they've had their thyroids removed, and that's a whole other, situation that I don't really deal with. I know there are people that follow me that have followed a lot of things that I do, that the things that I've shared with them have helped them a lot. But obviously, it's something that really, like, actually one of the reasons why I like to share a lot of this is because I really hope to reach, to have my message reach people before they get to that point, so that maybe they have a little bit more information and maybe, avoid it. But again, it's not something that I can tell you, hey, go for it or not. Like I won't ever tell anyone here what to do. I just want to share what I do, why I do it, explain, as best as I can my reasons why, and then let you basically make the decision, because after all, it's, it's your body, so it's your responsibility. Just like, for me, this is my health, it's my body, it's my responsibility. And I believe that's one of the reasons why also I've, been able to do a lot of this. It's because I do really take responsibility for my own health. I don't really let anyone else do it. I'll take advice, but I said I'm picky about who I follow advice from. So I believe that's really the the main thing that I wanted to share with you. So we've got a few minutes here. So if you're still here and you maybe have questions, or maybe if you want me to explain some of the things that I've done, I guess I'll open it up for questions, or if you want to know anything about me, this would be the time to do it. So let's see here. Keep going here. Fabian says, exactly, they don't listen to me. Sue, I've been drinking lots of teas that are for detox cleansing. I'm assuming specific herbs are key ingredients. What's your opinion on these teas for cleansing? I mean, I guess it depends on the teas. I use teas, I guess more for, yes, there's some teas that I use for cleansing, but really when it comes to like cleansing for me, like I said, fasting for me was the best way to cleanse my digestive tract. Second to fasting, I've talked about oxy powder is a product that I use, which would be essentially kind of like similar to doing a colonic. I've never done a colonic, and it's actually I was one of those things that I was terrified to do, so I went for oxy powder instead. But basically, it's going in and removing any kind of built up gunk that's in your intestines. That's really what you're trying to do. So fasting, the reason why it works is because, if you think about it, you're eating food, it's going down, through your digestive system, and if it's not being processed right in your gut, it's going to start sticking to your gut wall, and all that buildup, basically, it starts housing all the bad bacteria. And so really what you're trying to do is you're trying to remove a lot of that. So a lot of the cleansing that I did, number one, just by doing a fast, you're not putting any more food into the body. You're drinking a lot of liquids. So it's kind of like, when you cook and you have, leftover residue in a pan. So imagine if you didn't have any soap to clean with, what would you do is basically you can just rinse it off, and you need a lot of water to clean it up without soap. So that's kind of how you have to go into, the body is you're drinking a lot of water. Well, it's going to take a lot of water to basically remove a lot of that stuff, crusty stuff that's stuck to your wall. Now, the more advanced way that I've used is, I shared a solution that basically I took a bottle of vodka, 5 times distilled, and I added minerals and silica to basically avoid, drying up. Either I use it for both skin cleaning and to clean your gut, but basically it's vodka, a lot of ionic minerals, fossil shell flour. Fossil shell flour is basically what acted as the scrubbing agent. And then I would add a little bit of sodium bicarbonate. And so I basically make this vodka solution, and while I'm in a fasted state, I'll do a couple of shots of those. And so all this alcohol basically is going in, and with the fossil shell flour, it's like scrubbing out all the stuff, all the built up stuff in your gut. And you can like feel, the stuff, like you will have bowel movements, doing this kind of stuff, and there's stuff that's going to be coming out, and you're like, wow, if you're doing a fast, like I remember, I was on like day 5, day 6, and sorry if this is crass, but it's part of the story, I guess. Day 5, day 6, I was still going to the bathroom number 2, and I'm thinking, wow, like I haven't actually eaten any solid food, but I'm getting out all this stuff from outside of my body. And I can tell you, the more I did that, the lighter I felt, the more energetic I felt, the better like my digestive system started to function, right? So that was, for cleansing, that's, I guess, for me, that's what I found to be the most effective. And, again, I think the vodka solution is a little bit more advanced, but it's something that I'm going to be, sharing and making part of the, our energy and fat loss study group, which I'll be releasing more details about that. So if you're not on my newsletter, I'm actually transitioning out of email newsletter into just a Facebook Messenger. Emails don't seem to be delivered. A lot of people don't really get those emails. So I'm going to be transitioning into the Facebook Messenger feature. So that's where I'll be sharing. So if you go to my website, hypothyroidismsuccessstory.com, and there's a buttons in there that's, says send to messenger. If you click on that, you'll get a message, and then you'll be basically subscribed to my Facebook Messenger notifications. And that's where I'll be sharing, when I open up the, energy and fat loss study group here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. All right, so let's keep going here. So Chanel, I had radioactive iodine, and although I can't now stop medication, if I'm assuming that's intermittent fasting has helped in my past, I need to go back to it. Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that I've done consistently, and this is, I guess, one of those success habits that I hope to share more about, is the idea of repetition and consistency. And intermittent fasting is one of those things that I've done almost like, I'd say like 99% of the time since I did my original juice fast. I just started doing intermittent fasting like every day. That's one of the things that I always do, just because intermittent fasting allows it basically gives my gut a break every day. And if you think about it, like every day doing that, it's kind of like, it's the opposite of like, hey, if you eat, pizza, burgers, and fries every day, think about it, if you're doing that every day, there's a compounding effect where your health will deteriorate over time. And the thing about health is that you do something consistently every day, you don't notice the difference right away. It may take a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, but once once the symptoms start showing up, it just basically skyrockets, right? And so if you're having all these bad habits, that's what's going to happen. Well, intermittent fasting works the same way, where you start doing intermittent fasting, and the first few days, you're not going to notice any difference whatsoever. It's almost like nothing's happening. But if you continue to do it over and over and over and over again, over time, you'll start to notice the effects, and they become exponential towards the end. So intermittent fasting, great. And a lot of things that I also, I guess talk about since we're here, I have my probiotics here. So when you're doing intermittent fasting, taking probiotics is another great way to cleanse, because, probiotics, it's funny, I talk about this in my brewing book about there's a conditioning phase. Basically, when yeast and bacteria are done eating and digesting food, they go into a cleanup type of phase. So a lot of these probiotics, when they're going into your gut and there's no food, there's stuff that they clean up. A lot of the toxins are leftover residue. That's why this bacteria is good bacteria. It's because they clean you up. And it's a great, intermittent fasting. It's a great time to do probiotics, either towards the end or at the beginning. Probiotics really, like, any day, all the time, is really a good thing to do before going to sleep. It's great to help break down and digest whatever food you had that day. In the morning, if you're doing intermittent fasting, you're doing probiotics. It's basically finishing cleaning up whatever's left over. So intermittent fasting has helped in my past. Same thing for me. One of the absolute best things, and one of the core activities that we'll be doing in the energy and fat loss study group. So I'm glad you brought that up. See, Fabian, where is a good place to start on what you do for yourself first? First time here, but I'm willing to try anything, but meds did not work. So again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really tell you what to do. What I will be doing in my energy and fat loss study group is basically walk you through what I did. And so, like I said, I'm going to be starting from the very beginning. The very first thing that I do is I think of it in like, okay, there's certain habits that I created for myself. And so one of the first habits that I know that I created for myself was intermittent fasting. Now, there are, I guess, let me think of this. So I know that there are people who can jump right into intermittent fasting and feel fine. There are other people who need to work into intermittent fasting. So one of the key things about intermittent fasting is you're really working, pretty much everything that I do really focuses on restructuring your gut flora, cleaning your gut flora, feeding, inoculating your gut with good bacteria. So the process that I normally follow is I start people out with green juice. And the reason why I start with green juice is because I'm starting to nourish them with actual nutrients that the body needs, a lot of the minerals that the body needs. And so I start with a green juice and just basically get on the habit of starting every day with a green juice. That's basically how I start. Every day I will start out with green juice, and I do intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting for me is kind of like step 2. And so I create that habit. I do that for about a week. Once I get into that habit of, okay, that's how I'm starting my day, then I start adding, another component. So the next component for me would be drinking some sort of probiotic. So I like to do kombucha. Kombucha is one of my favorite drinks. If not kombucha, I like to make my own probiotics. And when I don't make my own, I just found this drink, Cocoa by GT. So they also make a good kombucha. So I add probiotics to my diet, and then from there, like I said, I spend another week developing the habit of taking my probiotics every day. And once that becomes a habit, then I go on to the next step. So the next step for me after that is, okay, what's the first meal that I'm eating? And I start to pay attention to that, and I either come up with something that I can eat every day, which I tend to get tired of, if I eat the same thing every day, I can't really do it. So I'll try to come up with good, at least 2 or 3 variations that I can go in between. But again, it's something that I default to. So I have it planned out so that when I go to work, there's people that will bring in stuff that I don't want to eat. They have, sometimes we're celebrating and they buy pizza and there's pizza available. And I'm like, oh God, like pizza's my favorite, but I'm on my diet, right? And because I'm creating these habits and I pre-plan my meals, that's how I'm able to basically navigate through. And another reason why I'm doing this as a study group is because I'm also holding myself accountable, and it just helps me. So part of me teaching this really is in a way because it helps me learn more, and it also helps me become accountable, because as I teach a lot of these topics, it really makes me I like to practice what I preach, basically, because I can't be talking about this and not do it myself, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So I guess that's where I would, that's where I'm going to be starting myself, and that's basically where people are also going to be starting: green juice, intermittent fasting, probiotics, first meal, and then kind of like going from there. Diana, hello, Diana. What kind of probiotics are you drinking? So again, probably saw the bottle, but I'll show it again. So it's this cocoa kefir. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But I said I just found this. I actually like to make my own probiotics. So that's one of the things that I teach, how to make your own probiotics. I'll give you the quick rundown. Basically, I'll take coconut water in a glass jar. And then that coconut water basically, has some sugars, but I also add fruits like either a pineapple and coconut, or I'll do like apple, maybe throw in like a cinnamon stick or something. And then I'll take, probiotics, which come in a capsule. I open up that capsule and I drop all the powder inside, mix it in with the coconut water. So then all the sugar from the fruit gets eaten up by the probiotics. And it's basically like making a yeast starter with brewing beer. So again, it's another concept that I know from brewing beer that, when you're making probiotics, like if you can see, I don't know if you can see this here, but there's all these bubbles here. That's carbonation. And again, it's basically part of, yeast or bacteria eating sugar. It's basically what happens. So those are the probiotics I'm drinking right now, but usually I like to make my own, and it's something that I'll probably be sharing more during the study group here. All right, let's keep going here. Sue, Fabian, you mentioned meds are not working. You need to get your T3, T4 numbers checked so your endo can regulate your synthroid. So, okay, when it comes to like giving advice like that, there's a reason why I don't do it, and that's because, I am, especially now, like I know a little bit more, about, there's different groups of people. So what works for one person may not work for another. So really, I'd be careful of, number one, sharing that kind of information, and for the person receiving it, also be careful of who you're taking advice from. No offense to anyone here, but it's just the reality of it. And like I said, I am not a doctor, so therefore I cannot provide that kind of advice or even comment on it. So I just want to I want to point that out primarily because a lot of people ask me those kinds of questions, and that's the reason why I don't answer, is because I'm not a doctor. So even if I wanted to, I'm not really licensed to do it, right? I can't do it. So anyways, let's see, moving on. Diana, I guess kombucha's good. Janelle, meds don't work for some people because doctors go by numbers. That thyroid church old school. Get a doctor that treats you for symptoms. Yeah, like I said, I did a video where I kind of do a walkthrough of all the different ways that people can experience a lot of these symptoms. Like I said, for some people it's TSH numbers, for some is they've had their thyroids removed, for some is digestive issues which lead to the body not digesting protein, which basically makes the body produce a lot of cortisol to break down muscle to get the amino acids for all these processes. For other people, it's their liver not converting the thyroid hormone T4 into T3. So this is where some people go from taking only T4 and going to something that has both T4 and T3, and all of a sudden they feel better. It's because their liver wasn't converting T4 into T3. So, they're taking nothing but T4, but it's not doing anything for them because it's the liver that's not converting T4 into T3. For other people, it's, hey, they're producing hormones, their liver's converting T4 into T3, but they're, once those hormones go into the bloodstream, they're not being delivered to the cells of their body. And it may be for dietary issues. Either they're consuming too many vegetable type of oils, a lot of polyunsaturated fats, PUFAs. That may be another reason. There's toxins. I mean, there's all kinds of things, right? Stress levels, a variety of things. So once you start to understand all these different things, you can kind of pinpoint, hey, my thing is primarily digestive issues and liver issues, or my thing is primarily digestive issues and not having a thyroid, or maybe, diet, or, whatever. So, but it's important for you to really figure out, understand your own body more than anything, because that's also going to help you find the right people, find the right professionals, the right doctors, the right nutritionists that can help you with your specific situation. Make kefir, so that's good. Me too. Diana here from California. Hypo with hashies. What probiotic capsule? So I use different varieties. God, I forget the brand name of it. One of them is, I believe, Renew. But really, what you're looking for when it comes to probiotics is variety. And there's a couple different ways that you can create variety. For example, I use probiotics that come with a green juice powder that I use a lot. I also found another probiotics bottle, I believe it's Renew Life, the name of the company, but it has like 40 different strains. And then, so strains, the variety of strains is, I believe, one of the most important things. Second to that is how you prepare them. So it's one thing, you don't want to take them straight like from a capsule into your gut, because it's kind of like, when making beer, pretty much every home brewer knows that you can't take a packet of dry yeast and try to make beer with it. Like, it's just not going to ferment well because the yeast is dormant and it needs to be activated. And that's where making a yeast starter comes into play in the brewing world, where I believe that in the probiotic world, the same is true, where if you take a capsule and it's just dry powder, well, it's dormant and it's not really activated, so it's not really going to do much for you. But if you make, probiotic drink where, the bacteria is active, it's actively eating all the sugars in the liquids that you're preparing, then that's what's going to, make it good. And then next to that is when you start to ferment different fruits or eat fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, like fermented pickles, not pickles where they're made with vinegar added, but like actually fermented pickles. Or when you make your fruit, like probiotics that I'm going to be sharing, every fruit has different strains of bacteria. So the more variety of fruits, that's also going to increase the variety of bacteria. So again, that's one of those topics that, I can expand on it and talk about this, all day. And it's already 8 o'clock, so I was expecting this to be about an hour. So I'm going to try to cut this short, but hopefully that answers your question here. So here we go, Fabian. One for heart, one thyroid. Good on meds. So I'm gonna probably skip these topics. So Diana, I bloat no matter what I eat. It's uncomfortable. What time do you eat your last and first meal when fasting? So the main thing to understand about fasting is that it takes about 12 hours for the body to enter a fasted state. So my last meal would normally be about 6 p.m. So I ate just before this live started, right around 6 p.m. So then by 6 a.m., that's 12 hours. That's the transition period, right? You're not fasting at that point. That's just your body. That's really I guess what I call the starvation period. And it's only starvation if you're active, but in this case, because it's my sleeping period, I don't even feel it. So I wake up, and by 6 a.m., that's when the body enters the fasted state. So then from 6 a.m. to noon, that's my actual fasting period. That's when my body's entered the fasted state. And what that means is that it's almost like flipping a switch inside the body that saying like, hey, we don't have any food. So instead of using sugar as a source of fuel, we're going to use fat. And so it's like flipping a switch, telling your body use fat as a source of fuel. So now in a fasted state, your body starts using fat as a source of fuel. What that means is that it starts breaking down fat inside of your body. And again, part of what that's doing is, on one hand, it's basically releasing toxins from your body. So it's going to start cleaning out. That's why drinking a lot of water when you're fasting is important. And I mean, basically you're burning fat, right? You're basically training your body to use fat as a source of energy. And that's the reason why, for me, one of the best meals to start out with is a ketogenic meal, because now your body's primed to use fat as a source of fuel. And now you're adding good fats, like good healthy fats. And good healthy fats are really like premium fuel. You know, a little bit goes a long way. So it's important. So my first meal will be right around noon, 1 p.m. You can do block fasting, to where, you know, you start your fasting at 6 a.m. and you only eat one meal at 6 p.m. You know, I will do that maybe once a week or once every other week. And it just basically, you know, the way that I think of fasting is like the first 6 hours, it's the same thing where like first hours, you're not feeling a lot, but the more prolonged that fasting period goes, the more the exponential benefits, you know, the more exponential the benefits become. I don't know if I'm saying that right or if that makes sense, but you know, so doing block fasting, like you'll feel the difference between going 12 hours of fasting versus 6 hours. So hopefully that helps. And again, as far as bloating, probiotics, that's really what's going to be the main thing. Next to that, a lot of bloating I find happens because our bodies are, you know, with all these gut issues, we're not able to digest protein very well. So papaya and pineapple have a lot of digestive, protein digestive enzymes. And, you know, you'll probably hear from a lot of people here that, you know, there's a reason why gluten, you know, gluten is really just it's a protein that's really, really hard to digest. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of people go without gluten, go without dairy. It's because of the proteins. But really, the problem is not the food, it's not the gluten or the dairy, it's your digestive system not being able to break that down. So you can help it either with eating foods that have those digestive enzymes. Like I said, pineapple and papaya have a lot of protein digestive enzymes. But more so than eating, you know, fruits, because again, you know, especially when you're fasting, you're trying to avoid sugars. If you make fermented, like one of the reasons why I like the pineapple probiotics that I make is because when I put pineapple in the coconut water and add probiotics, the probiotics eat up all the sugar from the pineapple. So I'm no longer eating the sugar. Right now I'm just taking the probiotics, but I'm still getting all the digestive enzymes from pineapple. Also, you can make kombucha, and same thing, do a separate batch where you add pineapple to your kombucha, let all the bacteria and yeast eat up the sugar, so you get all the enzymes. And I believe the actual name of this beverage will be tepache, which is, you know, famous in the southern part of Mexico. But you're getting all those digestive enzymes, and those are like some of the best ways that I've found to get rid of the bloating, because again, bloating was primarily coming from my body's inability to properly digest food, especially protein. So I hope that helps you, Diana. Let's see, Christine. Hello, Christine. I lost 10 pounds using my FitnessPal yoga and cutting out gluten and sugar. I'm interested in making a difference. I take Levo, had radioactive iodine a few years, went hyper to hypo. So yeah, same thing happened to my aunt. You know, they basically made her go from hyper to hypo, primarily because hypo is easier to control than hyper. But yeah, I mean, sounds like you are on the right path. You know, cutting out gluten and sugar. Again, you know, I talked about this earlier. I'm not sure if you were there for this, but, you know, part of having digestive issues, if you're eating a lot of sugar, that's giving birth and growth to a lot of bad yeast, yeast candida. You know, yeast eat sugar, turning on to alcohol is the lesson that I talked about earlier. So yeah, that's part of it. It's part of what we do, part of what I talk about and share a lot in, you know, in our study group. Let's see, other than coconut water, which I do not like, what other liquid base could I use? Yeah, I mean, if coconut water is something that you don't like, and you know, one thing to keep in mind though is, you know, when you make these probiotics, like this. I haven't really thought of like the actual taste, but yeah, I guess you can still kind of taste the coconut water, but you're gonna see like a different flavor because of the fermentation. But really, the key to understand is that what feeds these probiotics is sugar. So you can make teas like I have here. This is hibiscus red tea. So I can use this as a base, and all I would do is add cane sugar to this. So then the probiotics will go in and eat up all the sugar that I've added. So really what you're doing is you're feeding the bacteria, you're feeding sugar to these bacteria. And again, it's basically what I did brewing beer. I would feed yeast, sugar to all these yeast, and that's how I would make beer. So it's the same exact principle. So, I mean, and even just water, but I mean, that will be too bland, I think. So I would maybe choose a good tea and maybe try that way. So let's see here. Oh, wow, maybe I did not miss it. Lisa, hello, Lisa. Glad to see you made it. Christine, good info. Thank you. Lisa, yes. You can see in here. Awesome. Yes, audio, yes, video. Cool. All right. So it's been a little bit over an hour. I mean, I can go a little bit of overtime if you guys have any last questions, but I believe I've shared most of what I wanted to share, and I'm really glad for everyone that I was able to make it live. If you're watching the replay, or even like if as you're reading this, do me a favor and like this, comment, or share this, mostly because I'm kind of like understanding Facebook's technology and stuff like that. And if you notice, I've made a post announcing this this live, but it didn't really reach people. And that's because Facebook wants me to pay in order for me to get my message out. And some of it I do a lot of that where I promote stuff, but it really helps me when people like and share these posts, because then Facebook starts to show it to more people. So I appreciate everyone that's commenting here, being active, especially anyone that's sending me hearts. That's, for one, it's helps me know that there's activity, someone else listening out there. It's my first live. This has been interesting, and hopefully I'll be able to do more of these. But again, if you're interested in being part of our energy and fat loss study group, you can either send me a message on my fan page, or you can go to my website, hypothyroidismsuccessstory.com. And if you click the send to messenger button at the bottom of on the homepage, you'll be able to be subscribed to my Facebook Messenger notifications. So that's where I'll be sending out more details. Looking to maybe opening up the first one maybe in a couple of weeks. So that will give me time to basically promote this live, maybe do another live sometime between now and then, share more information, and basically get the first group of participants that wants to watch me go through my journey. Like I said, I'm going to start everything from scratch all over, and anyone that wants to participate will be able to follow along. And I want people to treat this as a kind of like a buffet where I'm going to be sharing all this information. You don't have to do everything that I do, but you can pick out what you like. Basically just pick what you like. Chew the meat, spit out the bones, whatever you don't like or don't want to partake on. But you'll be able to get all the information, and as you learn more, you'll probably learn and understand why I do some of the things that I do, and hopefully that helps you, become a success story, which is, like I said, that's my main goal for the rest of this year. I want to actually create more success stories that I can share on my page, and also basically create a community of people who are going through this and basically want to do the same thing that I'm doing, which is basically sharing this message with other people, helping other people, and doing it primarily by being an example for other people. So that's my goal. That's really what I wanted to share during this live. So I hope that all the information that I've shared has been helpful. And again, if it has been helpful, Make sure you like this. You know, if you're watching the replay, type in replay so I know that it's being watched after, you know, this live is over. And also make sure that you share this to help me, you know, spread this message around. So that's it for now. I don't see any more questions. So I want to thank everyone for being here, and I look forward to, I guess, getting to know some of you better here in the future. That's it for now. Good night, everyone, and I will talk to you soon. All right, see you guys.